Oh boy, is Icewind Dale a dark place. Hey everyone, Jake here from Monsters and Munchkins. I'm sure as some of you know, we are running Icewind Dale, the Rime of the Frost Maiden, over on our Twitch every Friday from 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it has been a ton of fun with a good amount of learning experiences for both GM and player alike. And in today's campaign diary, where we not only catch you up on everything that's happened between level 2 and level 4, we are also going to talk about all the things that we can get out of this and how to maybe get some ideas for running Icewind Dale. So if you're GMing it, stick around. Last we left off my players, they were level 1, just leveled up to level 2 after resolving the situation in Targos with Garrett, the lost mountain climber, and his party, and the Yetis, and all of that fun stuff, returning Garrett to his husband, getting a small reward, and becoming kind of local heroes for about half a second. Now, while yes, if my party did go back to Targos, they would find they are still in good favor with the people there. However, the criminal element, the Zemeterian spies, run by Narth Maxildinar, not so much. Now, one of my PCs is a spy for the Harpers. Automatically a rivalry there between those two spy groups. And in addition, he was suspicious that the party would start to cause him trouble. Now, eventually the party did, but however, at that time, not so much. So he sends his guards multiple times to kill them, and finally, in what appears to be a legal sacrifice to Oral, which the city does, in all fairness, do on a regular basis. However, Eli Fulbright was not a citizen of Targos, so there was no way he could have been selected in the first place with the way they run the auction. So obviously the party tries to escape, and a fight breaks out in the city. After fighting off the Targos guards and one of the personal assassins sent by Narth Maxildinar, they manage to get out of the city and leave that behind them. While out in the wilderness, they briefly talk about what happened. Eli denies having any connection to it. Everybody seems to believe him. They're a good time. They're stuck together now because they're fugitives, and they need to figure out where to go next. Now, I had a fairly good idea of what I thought they would do. Oh boy, will your players never do what you think they will do. Now, let's briefly touch on what exactly happened in Targos. Now, the Targos Adventure is relatively straightforward. Targos is one of the bigger cities. They have the Kevin's Cairn, the mountain range, not too far away, and they have a fair amount of trade passing through in addition to the normal Icewind Dale things that you could pass out to your PCs and give them small side quests. However, there's also that very important plot hook or potential side plot hook in the city where they can have the Zemeterian spies become their enemies. Now, the Zemeterians are bad guys, and in my campaign, I have worked out a larger hierarchy of things that they would like to get done in Icewind Dale. And the PCs at this point in time seemed like they could potentially pose an issue. So Narth takes it upon himself to make sure that they're eliminated before anything could happen. I do like setting up campaigns, even this is not in the book at all, so, take what I'm saying or leave it, it really doesn't matter. But I like setting up, like, there's this guy in the campaign, could be anybody, somebody from the PC's past, somebody from that they've never met before, but there's like this mid-level boss character, which the PCs, when they finally take him down, they hit level 5. And it's this really cool moment where there's been this whole build-up in the campaign, and they finally bring him down, and now they've kind of hit this new tier of adventuring where they're significantly more powerful than they were before. Spellcasters have 3rd level spells, fighters have multiple attacks, rogues get an additional die on their sneak attack. Overall, it is just a really great time. So the obvious choice for me was the Zemeterians. They're working with the Dwergar, which will happen later in the campaign, and it was just an easy setup to get going. So after that was resolved, I thought they could have gone in a few different directions. However, they went to the town I thought they were least likely to go to, the town of Bremen. Now, Bremen is kind of out of the way. It's this little fishing town in the middle of nowhere. If you're going to spend a lot of time in Bremen, I would really recommend bringing out the fishing industry and how that impacts the area around it. Now, my PCs were offered the Bremen Quest, where they go out and talk to the lake monster. However, they opted to do something completely different. When they saw the distressed woman in the tavern talking about how she lost her son, they immediately took interest in that. They don't like cults. They don't like cults. They don't like evil things. So they were like, of course we'll find your son, woman. We will go. We will be good questers, and we will do the right thing. So they leave Bremen, they blow off the main quest, and they go to find her son. They walk for a long time out in the middle of nowhere. So I have a random encounter. Now, I'm not a huge fan of random encounters to begin with. However, I saw the potential that there could be some combat later in the session, so I wanted to take the opportunity to maybe take away some of the PC's, excessive resources. So I rolled Awakened Owlbear. Oh goody, this will be fun. So the Awakened Owlbear approaches them when they're kind of halfway between Bremen and Sierra de Naval, which is where she said her son went missing after he discovered this black rocky thing and spoke to these weird tiefling people. So they encounter this Awakened Owlbear. Now, in the party, Ren absolutely loves animals, to the point where at first it was fun and now it's just annoying. But anyway, he absolutely loves animals. So they go over to the Owlbear, and before combat starts, Ren tries to persuade it to become their friends. And oh boy, does he roll super high and persuades the Owlbear to not kill them in the immediate moment. The The owlbear now relays the information that it was turned by a druid over in Lonelywood who serves the Frostmaiden. The PCs, in order to be let go by the owlbear, need to agree to make sure that the owlbear can never have its awakened condition taken away from it. Now, the owlbear doesn't understand magic, so it thinks if it stops serving this druid, then the awakened can go away, but you can't actually get rid of the awakened spell. And my PCs didn't know this either, so they're like, yeah, sure, we'll go talk to this druid, resolve this situation, make sure she doesn't take away your abilities, and you don't need us. And they rolled some more persuasion checks, and sure enough, the owlbear, which they named Samson, is now their friend. So that was that. So now they have Lonelywood, which is another place that they have to check off on their quest around 10 towns, which has become very sporadic and all over the place, but seemingly no meaning. But I was just kind of going with it, because while they were running around and ignoring things that they've set in motion, I was setting those things in motion, which we will get back to in just a moment. And let me tell you, it only gets worse. So they reach the Ardenneval. Now they look around, all the inns say that you can't stay here except for the one inn that's closed. Turns out that inn has Dwergar in it. Now, in the last session, the PCs had been captured by Dwergar. So they're like, we don't like those people, let's go take care of this problem. So they go into the inn, they fight the Dwergar run away as the fight starts to go south, and the PCs are then like, well, maybe those people at the castle will let us in now that we have information about the Dwergar. So they head to the castle, and sure enough, the guards are like, Dwergar, we have somebody that wants to speak to you. Now, they've said multiple times at this point that the speaker is not around to talk to the characters, so the characters know this walking into the castle. Cedric, who's played by my brother Cody, is very against all things evil, so he's kind of on the lookout, but then I think he just got tired at this point and kind of stopped being aware of all the obviously bad things that were going on in the castle. When they go into the castle, they walk past a statue of the Lord of the Nine, Levicitus, the Devil of Ice. And they proceed to go and speak to this old woman who gives them this prophecy about the Dwergar. And they were like, we don't like Dwergar. Sure, we want to help get rid of the Dwergar. So she says, well, you need to speak to our leader, Avarice. Finally, they meet the tiefling Avarice. Now, she's an albino tiefling, not a very powerful wizard, but a powerful enough wizard who I am leveling up at the same pace as the character. So she's able to keep up with them, and she has her own things that she's going off to do, which will remain a secret, which I will then give her the opportunity to roll some dice by myself and give her the opportunity to level up possibly past what the characters are at. She's already past it, but I wanted her to kind of, stay a step ahead. So after speaking to Avarice, they agree to technically become allies of the Black Swords and work with the cult. For some reason, Cedric doesn't realize it's a cult and just goes along with it the entire time, and now they're all cult members. They're given the Charlatan necklaces, which do induce madness, and everybody decided not to wear them except for Ren, which is something I missed because I assumed they would all take them off. So that is something I resolved in a later session. So they all leave on their necklaces, and they're kind of standing around, and they say, well, what do we do now? We just joined a cult. What's next after you join a cult? So after some discussion, they decide they are going to keep their promise to their owlbear friend Samson, and they are going to head to Lonelywood to talk to this druid. Here's where the setting things in motion and then ignoring it really kicks in. I mean, aside from joining the cult, before they get to Lonelywood, they hit Termalaine. Now, they are immediately, for the most part, enjoying the city of Termalaine. The Goliath barbarian Crip and the rogue Eli love the blue clam. It's a very warm, welcoming environment where everybody has a good time, and they just seem to like the city. So when the city asks them for help on their way out dealing with a kobold problem in the caves, they immediately agree. They head into the caves, and after killing a few kobolds and getting ambushed by a grell, which very nearly ended in a PC going down, actually I'm going to take a break from the overall story and talk about that combat. Now, running the grell was an interesting challenge for myself as a GM, because it's a difficult monster to take down, but not that resilient overall, so I wanted to make sure it got a drop on one of the players. And sure enough, true to his character, Ren makes a terrible decision. In his consistent impulsiveness and just overall putting everything he wants to do before the good of the world, the party, literally anything, he decides he needs to go mining right in that moment. So the rest of the party settles down, takes a short rest, while Ren goes off by himself to mine, which is when the grell pounces, takes him out. They jump to combat to try to save him. Crip also goes down after trying to grapple the thing, which was obviously very good at grappling, goes down. Eli tanks like a boss, and Cedric dishes out a ton of Crimson Right damage and is able to finally drop the thing. So that was a fun combat to run, and when you know what your PCs do and you want to make combat interesting, feel free to exploit their bad decisions in such a manner. I think it not only teaches valuable lessons, but it makes fighting fun, and isn't that what we're all trying to do? So after dropping the grell, they proceed deeper into the cave. They meet the final kobolds, where they actually find the leader is quite intelligent. His name is Trex. He's speaking in common in a very fluent accent. He speaks like a very sophisticated gentleman who's studied on the Sword Coast. And the party's kind of taken with him, except for Cedric, who goes, I think he's possessed. And sure enough, he hits the nail on the head. The kobold is possessed, however, nobody else believes him. So they leave, they make an agreement with the kobolds that they'll put in a good word for them to just work and live in the town. Seems like everything will work out fine, nobody listens to Cedric, and then they bounce and they leave the kobolds to run around the town. So while this is happening, while the party is heading to Lonelywood and setting things in motion that they then ignore, what's going on in Termalaine? Well, first of all, we need to talk about Termalaine as a town by itself. Termalaine is a fishing town. Termalaine is a mining town. Termalaine is valuable in resources, and who wants resources and connection in the businesses of Icewind Dale? You guessed it, our friends the Cemeterian, read by the friendly neighborhood Nareth Maxwell Dinar. So he's looking for any opportunity, any weakness in the town to get his guards in there, kick out the current speaker who's doing a good job of running things, but to kick him out, make him look weak, and to set up his spy ring in the town. Well, this opportunity comes after the party lets the kobolds out of the cave. Sure enough, Trex, who is possessed by the ghost of, I want to say Janeth, Janeth's ghost gets out and possesses the speaker. Now, while this is going on, the speaker makes a bunch of bad choices politically while the party has left, and sure enough, it is the excuse Nareth needs to start sinking his claws into the city of Termalaine and exploiting the businesses that they have there for his own advantages. So, while the party has left those things to just fall where they may, they head to the town of Lonelywood. Now, Lonelywood is where Cedric grew up, and in Cedric's backstory, he wrote an extensive thing about vampires, which I agreed to put into the campaign because it was cool and Cody was very into it. So, sure enough, there was some trepidation about going to Lonelywood and about what he might encounter there. However, at this point, I've made it so the vampires have left, and most of the population don't remember them ever being there. While they set up watch for that night after Cedric sent out several warnings to the party to be careful, they are ambushed by a vampire kobold and 2 zombie kobolds. They take care of it relatively easily in a pretty fun combat. It was just a relatively straightforward bash of a brawl, and sometimes it's nice to just have a nice and easy combat like that to blow through for most of the DM and the players, where you don't really need to worry about it. But that night, Cedric is visited by the vampire from his backstory, Isabel. Now, Isabel tells him that, sure enough, the vampires have left and there's nothing to worry about in Lonelywood, and the bite mark that is on Cedric's neck that she left there will only get worse over time, and as a blood hunter, he can slow down his system to stop it from affecting him immediately. However, there's a ticking time bomb inside of him, and eventually he will become her spawn unless the situation is dealt with. Now, Cedric keeps this dream to himself, and the party wakes up the next day and heads into Lonelywood. He's still super suspicious despite the fact that Isabella said that nothing was there to hurt him. He's still on high alert. They walk around the town for a bit and look around. Cedric goes to talk to his mom at this point, which is where things get interesting. Now, Cedric recently learned that he is an heir of Neverwinter. He learned this when an assassin tried to kill him before the campaign started. And he went to his mom and they had a long discussion about why he never knew about this. She said it was for his own good. He was quite upset. Eventually, he leaves feeling quite disgruntled that he was this heir of Neverwinter and never knew about it growing up, and that he couldn't protect himself and be prepared for it. That was the secret that he rolled, which you can learn about in our first campaign diary. So after that all goes down, they finally look around a bit and try to figure out where this druid is. So they speak to the speaker of the town, Nimsy, the very friendly gnome, and she informs them that out in the woods is the white moose who has been animated by this druid and is causing trouble. They head out into the woods to meet the moose. On their way there, they encounter this elvish tomb where they trace the moose's footsteps to. They look around a bit, determine that the moose is probably in there. However, Ren doesn't want to fight the moose, so he goes in to talk to it. The moose says that he killed their friend Samson the owlbear. The moose says that it's evil. Ren explicitly ignores it and says that an animal can't be evil. Then the moose kicks his ass and drops him and makes him fail 2 death saves. Okay, here's the thing, right, guys. Don't go out of your way to kill your characters. However, when they make bad choices, I'm not saying you should kill them, but you have every right to try as hard as the enemies would to do so. So that is exactly what I did in that situation. So after Ren goes down, the rest of the party jumps in and tries to kill the moose. They do so, and they decide to explore the rest of the tomb because they've still not encountered this druid. They wait out the night in the tomb, and when the door opens, they fight her, bring her down, learn her relatively sad story about her sister being killed by hunters, and then continue to resolve, they're resolving situations in Icewind Dale, and they've removed this druid from the equation, and they learned that the monster up in the city of Bremen was one of her creations. So they feel a lot better about it. Now, they do at this point acknowledge, like they will many over the course of the campaign, that they've still not told the woman in Bremen about her son being not dead, because they saw him at the cult place. However, they just continue to blow that off. So they head back through Termalaine, check everything out. I specifically described some people as acting weird, such as the speaker who is now possessed by the ghost, the kobolds who are now acting very different than where they found them, and they were all like, that's not our problem. Where should we go next? Should we go to Bremen and do what we agreed to do and tell the woman that her son's safe? No, we're going to go to Bryn Shander. Now, Bryn Shander is Eli's town, and Eli has his Harper informant there. His Harper informant tells them that there's been some trouble going on. Nareth has a death sentence on their heads, and that they should be careful. He says thank you, and they go to sleep. The next day, while they're looking around town looking for work, they encounter two things. They encounter the house of the Morning Lord, where they encounter that little gnome tinkerer in the attic who asks them to go check on his friend out in the wood, where they're inventing a magic item that could forever stop winter in Icewind Dale. They're all very excited about this and immediately set off. However, on their way out, they meet this bloodied group of dwarves who asks for their assistance finding the lost iron ingots. So they first go off to do that. They retrieve the cart, take out the goblins relatively easily, learn about goblins to the north, again, just completely ignore the fact that there's a goblin empire to the north, and continue off on their way back into the city, return the iron ingots, and then they decide they're going to spend a day getting ready to go off on this quest to this black cabin where they're going to get this magic item to end winter forever in Icewind Dale. However, on this particular day, there is a town meeting here. They see Nareth Maxwell and they're like, hey, he's not a nice guy, we shouldn't hang out with him. They leave, they go, they buy some axe beaks, they buy some sled dogs, and they do go to the town meeting. Cedric and Ren go to the town meeting, and they listen to the things that are going on. They hear of the trouble in Termalaine. The speaker says, who's no longer possessed, the speaker says he's lost several days. Nareth is using the opportunity to accuse him of being a bad speaker. The speaker of Bryn Shander is trying to hold everything together. However, there's a lot of accusations flying in the air, and ultimately not much gets done at the meeting, other than the fact that they say that they'll keep an eye on all the problems. Nareth sees this as an opportunity to slip up to the city, and that's up to Termalaine, and that's exactly what he does while the PCs spend the night in Bryn Shander. Now, the night that they spend in Bryn Shander, they are ambushed by spies, which they find out are from the Zemeterians, which they now know is connected to Nareth Maxwell. However, they ignore it. So, that's a thing. They then go to Termalaine, leaving Bryn Shander, and they see this bad situation that has only begun to get worse. And that is where we're going to end. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed that video. It was certainly a ton of fun for me to film. Something to keep in mind when you're running these towns is what the towns mean. Now, there's not much going on in Lonelywood, but there is that connection to that necromancer through the barkeep there. So maybe that's something you want to explore later in the campaign. I know that's something I'll be doing. Maybe in the city of Targos, you don't focus so much on the Zemeterians, but you focus on the mountain climbing and all the other stuff that Targos has to offer and just running it like that. Termalaine also has a ton to offer if your PCs are into the more mundane things of Dungeons & Dragons. They could be mining, they could be fishing, they could be contributing to the overall aspects of the campaign. Also in Lonelywood, they could set up that tavern to run, which I think would be really cool. I always like it when PCs take those opportunities to put down roots in the world and have some fun playing house a little bit in an overall dark campaign, and I hope my players do that before they get burnt out on the grittiness of Icewind Dale. If you've enjoyed that, you can come check us out on Twitch every Friday from 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we are playing this very fun campaign. Currently on the YouTube channel, as of filming this video, you can watch Session 2, but the rest will be coming out in short order. In the meantime, guys, you've been wonderful once again. I've been Jake from Monsters and Munchkins. Until I see you again, don't forget to have fun and roll some dice.